Hello and welcome to the Buzz on Earth podcast, a weekly nosedive into the world of sustainability, renewable energy, environmental conservation, and climate change. We are excited to have you here with us today, so let's jump in. Guess what the Great Pacific Garbage threw up? In our last podcast, we had talked about the hitches that Dutch inventor and entrepreneur Boyan Slat's 2,000 feet long ocean cleanup device kept running into. The largest accumulation of plastics in the world's oceans is an island roughly triple the size of France in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. A whirlpool of water currents known as ocean gyre keeps the trash island held in place. The initial plastic waste retrieved from the patch are of a globe-smacking variety. For example, a giant anaconda-like fishing net stuffed with fruit, a tire, food wrappers, cartons, etc. Posting a picture of the haul on Twitter, Slat wrote, "Our ocean cleanup device is now finally catching plastic. The plastics gathered from now till December will be brought to the shore then for recycling." Slat is working on scaling the device now so that it can keep collecting waste for a year or longer. It's a bird emergency. North American bird species are struggling to survive the avalanche of obstacles that climate change is unleashing upon them. The National Audubon Society announced in a groundbreaking report that 389 bird species, or two-thirds of all birds in North American continent, are on the brink of extinction. David Yarnall, CEO and president of Audubon, said keeping global temperatures down will help up to 76% of them. There's hope in this report, but it's a bird emergency. Audubon has outlined 5 key steps to help these birds reduce the use of energy and also the demand for electricity, then lobby for championing renewable energy in your country, individually and collectively reduce the carbon emissions that we release into the atmosphere, increase green cover from reforestation, increasing wetlands and grasslands to planting native trees that help birds adapt to climate change, and lastly, ask elected leaders of your country or local government to prioritize environment and climate change. Are you ready to pay with your footprint? Yes, want to enjoy a world-class vacation that doesn't cost the earth? Yes, pun intended, doesn't cost the earth. The Arctic Blue Resort is set to open in Kontiolahti. It's a rural town 450 kilometers away from the Finnish capital of Helsinki, known for breathtaking landscape and a rich ecosystem of forests and estuaries. That resort has an unusual proposition for guests who wish to slash their bill by half. Patrons who are mindful of their electricity usage, make sustainable food choices, participate in tree plantations and other ecological activities will have their bills reduced by up to 50%. The hotel is designed to be self-sustaining. It is built with natural materials and will have its own water treatment room. The tourism industry, of course you know, is notoriously environmentally destructive. Around the world, pristine landscapes have been destroyed by mounds of plastic waste, exploitation of scarce water resources, and much more. With its carbon emission pricing system, Arctic Blue Resort pioneers a new kind of tourism, one that champions nature instead of destroying it. The question is, are other hotels willing to follow suit? Raise your energy levels. The International Energy Agency (IEA) released a spot of happy news recently. Global renewable power capacity is increasing rapidly and is expected to rise by 50% in the next 5 years. With green tech getting more affordable and government policies for once working in tandem rather than against climate interests, the world is seeing this massive shift to clean energy becoming a reality. To put it into perspective, renewables account for 26% of the world's electricity today, According to IEA's report, that number is expected to reach 30% by 2024. Faith Birol, IEA's executive director, said technologies such as solar photovoltaics, which is the solar PVs, and wind energy are at the heart of transformations taking place across the global energy system. Their increasing deployment is very crucial for efforts to tackle greenhouse gas emissions and also reduce air pollution, as well as expand energy access. However, he was quick to warn that renewable energy has to grow much faster than its current rate if we are to meet the current climate requirement and keep carbon emissions down to 2 degrees. The young shall inherit the earth. What's Greta Thunberg up to these days? After her eviscerating speech at the UN Climate Action Summit, she's continuing with spreading her message and amplifying her emotionally charged rallying cry, "How dare you?" She reinvigorated crowds in a climate rally in Denver recently with the phrase, "How dare they?" How dare they leave their mess for their own children to clean up? How dare they pretend that they are doing enough? She also refused an environmental award worth $52,000 being bestowed on her by the Nordic Council, saying that the climate movement does not need any more awards. She stressed that what is needed is more action and more change. Despite all the bleak, negative climate news we are bombarded with every day, knowing that children like Greta and her brethren will soon be running the show gives us cause for hope. The earth needs stewards who can stand to unleash the biggest reforms. We've got some bad news if you just like to Netflix and chill. An increasing number of people watching videos on streaming services like Netflix and Amazon Prime are contributing to an explosion of carbon emissions that are far higher than when people were actually required to get into their cars and drive to the nearest video rental store and pick up DVDs of the movies and shows. One would think that staying at home and chilling with your laptop would be more eco-friendly than round trips to the energy-guzzling movie theaters and video rental stores, but turns out that it's quite just the opposite. Watching a half-hour show or a movie causes emissions equivalent to 1.6 kg of carbon dioxide. That's driving 6.28 kilometers. For those of us who would like to binge on an entire session in one sitting, the thought makes us gulp, yes. These numbers were released by the French think tank called Shift Project. According to them, last year, online video streaming services generated as much emissions as the country of Spain. That number is expected to double this year. Watch out. Now let me throw some cold water on those really mean sea level rise predictions. That's bad news. A new study published by the US-based nonprofit Climate Central in the Nature Communication Journal, concludes that rising sea levels caused by climate change will erase 3 times more cities by 2050 than previously thought. Previous estimates about the rise of sea levels underestimated the severity of the situation because those numbers were derived from the NASA satellite data, which miscalculated the altitude of the coastal land. Such data struggles to differentiate the height of trees and buildings from the height of the land below and thus delivered optimistically inaccurate findings. What makes Climate Central's findings different from the usual methodology employed to predict rising sea levels is that it used AI instead of satellite imagery, and the results are staggeringly grim. Yes, coastal cities will be wiped out completely. 340 million people are, and not the previously thought 80 million, are at risk. China, India, Bangladesh, Indonesia, Vietnam, and Thailand are going to be the worst affected areas. Though Asia will bear the brunt of this destruction, even Brazil and UK will face a lot of land loss. This mass displacement will begin to take place just 30 years from today. Imagine. Bloody whale come news. 20th century whaling practices had almost wiped out the humpback whale, so much so that by 1950 only 440 whales, which is 1.6% of their once population, remained in the southwestern Atlantic Ocean. A recently published study finds that that number has gone up to 25,000 now. How well these humpback whales have rebounded from the brink of extinction is better than anything scientists could have ever predicted. Protection measures were put in place from the 1960s, and whaling in that region stopped for good in the 1970s. Today, the western South Atlantic humpbacks have recovered 93% of that original number. This is a clear example that if we do the right thing, population will recover. I hope it serves as an example that we can do the same thing for other animal populations as well, said Alexandre Verbini, a whale expert who is the lead author of a research paper chronicling the whale's recovery. Now here's an added motivation for sticking to that healthy diet. The healthier and more nutritious your diet, the better it is for the planet. Michael Clark of the Oxford University led a study which examined how dietary choices affect environmental sustainability and human health. Using a global model and meta-analysis, the team assessed the health and environmental impact of 15 foods common in Western diet. What Clark and his team uncovered was that eating fruits, vegetables, beans, and whole grains were best for both avoiding diseases and preserving climate and water resources. Eating a diet heavy in red and processed meat caused the poorest health and pollution. That's all we have for you in this episode. For regular updates and insightful articles from the world of sustainability, please log on to BuzzOnEarth.com and subscribe to our newsletter. This is Shubhodas signing off on behalf of the BOE team. Goodbye till we meet again in the next episode of Buzz on Earth podcast. Thanks for tuning in.